Chris Johnson?
Here.
Larry Ball?
Here.
Katie Hessler is absent. Linda Moore?
Here.
And Mark Eastman is here. First order is to approve minutes of the August 2nd, 2022 meeting. Any questions?
No.
So moved.
Okay.
Motion we approve.
Second? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Discussion items, 1994 Cemetery Committee report.
I included this because it was another piece of information sort of on the last time I think that they did an evaluation of each of the cemeteries, which I thought would be useful since we're in the process of doing that again, and sort of what they used for criteria and how they came up with what they were doing. And as Mr. Johnson has noted, it's now in our folder of information, which is growing on our cemetery. But, the request for assistance for cemetery care was an interesting form to come across because that was how they had set it up for. But I spoke with former town manager Roger Raymond about how they came up with the distribution of funds to non-town cemeteries, and he indicated that the committee had come up with a funding. It was based on a combination of items, which was number of graves, number of veterans' graves, the size of the cemetery, and that they had apportioned that based on trust funds that were set up for some of these, but that Riverview wasn't included because Riverview had taken all of their trust funds under their own management. There was nothing that was apportioned from town anymore because Mr. Foster had done that at that time. And I only say that because that was a question and none of us knew the answer to it, and that's Mr. Raymond's, how they came up with what they did.
Yep.
But that, that's kind of been stuck in stone since because it hasn't changed. There's been no further evaluation of if that still works, how much these places have in trust to fund, there's been no evaluation, and if we're looking at all of this, we probably should add that component to it as well, just to look again at whether that formula is still the right one to use.
Yep. Okay. Anybody have anything to add?
No. I do know that I saw some other information in that folder that I have that talks about the different trusts and the amounts, and some handwriting stuff in there. There's a lot of different numbers that are there. But I do remember at one time after Roger left, there was a town manager here that had talked about increasing those amounts. So at that time, I believe they increased them. I think there was one particular cemetery that was asking for more funds. And I think, and I'm shooting from memory here, so bear with me. But the council had decided that they could fairly spread it around to all the cemeteries, and that happened, I believe. At the time, Riverview, I think the attitude was we don't really need any money at this point from the town, so they didn't include it at that point. But my feeling too at that time is that Riverview didn't need extra money from the town. They were well invested and were taking care of themselves. For me, and I'm going to pontificate just a little bit here, for me, I think it's important that the town keep a track on these. Despite the howls from Silver Lake and Riverview, I think eventually the town's going to end up managing all these cemeteries. And I think it's important that the town get on top of these issues of funding or financing these cemeteries, so that if or when that happens, and I think it'll happen eventually, the town will be in good shape to know what's going to be needed. for all these other cemeteries that are out there. It may be longer for Silver Lake and Riverview because of their financial wherewithal, but sooner or later, you hear Kathy talk about the difficulty they've had with, people leaving. The same issue happens at Riverview. If it's happened at these two cemeteries, it's happening at the other ones as well. So I just think that it's a good idea to work with these cemeteries to help them as best we can. But I also think it's a good idea to help these cemeteries because eventually it will help the town when those start migrating across. And I think it's a good idea. It would be a good idea to approach these cemeteries and say, how can we help? How can we help with your management or whatever it is? Because down the road, I think it'll help the town as well in the long run. And I know I'm just speculating here, but that's the general trend of cemeteries all around. They end up going to the town responsibility. And I just think it would be easier for the town to have a good management scheme in place before that happens. So we're talking long-term here, I know, but that was my concern when we started that. Where are we going with this now?
Okay.
Thank you.
Go
I have
ahead.
a question.
Sure.
Is Riverview and Silver Lake the only funded by themselves cemeteries in?
Technically, no, there's
In
Hillside. Let's see, what else? There's Hillside is out in East Bucksport. I'm trying to think of any other large cemetery that's taking place. Well, no.
Oak Hill, is it?
No, that's closed.
Oh, we mean, okay, open.
Silver Lake, Catholic Cemetery, Hillside, Riverview, and the Evergreen. Evergreen manages itself, too.
Well, I don't know where a lot of these cemeteries are.
You're gonna,
I'm going to find out, I'm sure. So I've never heard of Evergreen.
There may be others out there, but I'm not aware of any right now that I can think of, those 5 or whatever. And some of those are taking public funds, which, as you know, I've said before, it's not a problem for me. But I just think we ought to know, we ought to be able to track those funds, but also help them from a town perspective, if that's possible, to help manage, if they need management of their funds, and many of them will say no, probably, that's okay. As well as maybe there's a group purchase ability for maintenance. I don't know. Maybe there's, I heard of something that I never believed I would hear yesterday. Somebody told me that one of the cemeteries is being mowed by a contractor, by a landscape person. In my life, I never thought I would ever hear something like that, because most of the time landscape people don't want to do cemeteries. It's so labor intensive.
We put out a bid for Oak Hill and got no one.
Right.
We ended up with 2 of our public works people doing it on their own time and us paying them.
9 hours each, right? Yeah.
that's a lot of time.
It is, and it's just not attractive for landscape people to go into those places. Just it's awful. And when I managed Riverview, there was no way they wouldn't talk to you, because they want to get that equipment off, get that place mowed, get it back on, and go to the next job. But I'd heard that there was one particular cemetery here in town that's been fortunate enough to get a contractor to jump in, so we'll see how that goes. But those are the kind of issues that are there for everybody. So, and I do appreciate your efforts on trying to get somebody to come to these, because it's tough. Speak of the devil. There we go.
All right, well, the next item is site visit. Should we just go ahead and adjourn?
Yeah, you can adjourn the meeting, but state that you're going on to site visit at Buck Cemetery and land for.
Yep.
The only, Kathy said she was going to contact me about where she, when she was free, and so if you are going to Buck, tell me
I'll
when
let
you
you know where
leave
I
there
am.
so that I can let her know.
Yep. Mr. Chair, question for the town manager. Where are we with the old Methodist and the survey?
Waiting for the survey.
Okay. Can we assume that there's more than likely that we're going to have to move those next year, not this year?
But most likely.
Okay. So, and that's fine with me. I'm just thinking, because we wanted to have a discussion with the Riverview folks. Are we going to have a discussion with the property owners? Is that a good idea to schedule something like that in anticipation of the eventual move, as well as potential for?
I'd get the survey first.
The survey is
Okay.
what I'm. If everything's what if in terms of location
Yeah.
until we get that survey done. And that's the only reason they've been cooperative, but their concerns are, you know, where it's located and all that kind of
Oh,
stuff. And I really want to make sure that the next conversation we have, that the survey absolutely shows where these easements are and where.
Yeah, no, I think
the
that's
rights
great
would
too.
be.
I think that's wonderful. I just try to understand.
Yep.
Because I'm thinking there's no need to hurry this now. We need to make sure that it's done correctly and that everybody has a full understanding before we start that procedure as to what's going to happen and how it's going to take place, rather than have trucks moving up across somebody's lawn but
Yeah,
it just,
no.
we don't need that.
Yeah.
And we don't need Riverview folks saying, what are you doing? And they're aware of the potential, the need to move this. So I just want to make sure it's being, and thank you for your response. I appreciate it.
Okay, so item 5 is site visits, so we're going to go ahead and depart for Buck Cemetery and then Lamphor Cemetery, but I will take a motion for adjournment.
So move.
Motion.
Okay, all in favor? All right, motion passes.